senior producer from NFL Films, Greg Cosell, joining us. And Greg's appearance on the show is presented by Scott Lawnyard, an official commercial site work partner of the Buffalo Bills. How we doing, Greg? You ready for divisional weekend?
I'm really excited about it, and you know they obviously made this game the last one intentionally, and I'm really looking forward to this one.
Well, hopefully it'll live up to the hype that it has given us reason to believe it will. So we'll see. They played earlier in the year, week 14.
Yeah.
In fact, has been fairly recently, right? So,
Yeah.
How does that game affect your mentality about this game?
Well, you know, Steve, I think these teams know each other well. They've played quite a bit over the last number of years. So, you know, again, I don't think that there's going to be a lot of mystery involved here. You know, obviously there's certain things on each side of the ball that you have to be prepared for. You know, the Bills on offense are going to have to certainly be prepared for Steve Spagnuolo blitzing. I mean, he's going to do that, and he'll probably show a couple of pressures that aren't exactly ones they've seen, you know, before. But we're actually looking at the touchdown to James Cook now, which, believe it or not, is a play I broke down in this week's matchup show because it did come against a blitz, and it was a really cool concept by the Bills and how they got to Cook on the H-seam throw. But, you know, I think you always have to be aware you're going to get pressured. You have to understand that, and you're going to have to be able to beat it when you play a Steve Spagnuolo defense. You know, on the other side of the ball, you know, and again, I'm just giving broad strokes, and you guys can then ask, you know, go any direction you want. You know, the Bills will likely play, which they normally do, a lot of zone coverage, and you're going to have to be really disciplined, play really smart with your eyes. Mahomes knows how to move people. He knows how to move around and keep his eyes downfield. So you have to play with great discipline. So, you know, there's certain things that have to happen in this game in order for, you know, on both sides, but obviously for the Bills to win, there's certain things that have to happen.
Right. I want to begin with one of the biggest changes in this matchup, which is the venue. And we know that the offensive tackles for the Chiefs have had their share of problems this season, particularly
Yes.
Jawan Taylor had 2 more penalties last week at home, and now he's going to be operating with silent count. So my question to you is, are there ways in which Sean McDermott can scheme things up to ensure he gets one-on-one matchups on the edges? Because I think they can win there.
Yes. And there's also things they can do, not only one-on-one matchups, Brownie, but with their fronts, show what look like stunts might be part of it as well, because the way offensive tackles are taught to deal with stunts is they stay inside for an extra step because it looks like it might be a stunt. So with the use of your fronts, where you line people up, you can create problems for offensive tackles for sure. And even Donovan Smith, who was back last week at left tackle, he has struggled as well, Brownie. So, you know, this has to be an advantage for the Bills. They have to be able to, again, we're not talking about getting 9 sacks. We know that's not going to happen, but they have to be able to speed up Mahomes. They have to be able to win those matchups. And then obviously we know Mahomes can move and make plays. So then you have to be able to respond to that.
One of the things that has come out of this is that the Chiefs' offensive tackles have struggled. They got one tackle, and I can't remember his name, but the right tackle has been penalized.
Jawan Taylor.
Jawan Taylor's been.
Jawan Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, the penalties have been, you know.
He's the most penalized player in the league.
Yep.
So, and being on the road, certainly, as we've seen, offensive tackles like to back up a little bit off the lineup, a little bit off the line of scrimmage, and push it and push it and push it. And then, you know, but also when they can't hear the snap count because of the crowd, this is going to be a new experience for the Chiefs in the Mahomes area, the road playoff game. I mean, it does make a difference over the course of 4 quarters, right?
Yeah, you would think it would. You know, to me, one of the big questions in this game, and I'm not suggesting they're not going to put the ball in Mahomes' hands. Obviously, he's a great player, but they certainly have become, quote unquote, more balanced over the last month or so, you know, with Pacheco, and they've run the ball with some volume and with production. So, you know, that's, again, we don't know how they're going to come out and play in this particular game, but, you know, that has certainly been an added dimension that we never thought a whole lot about prior, that they're really a running football team. But Pacheco's had over 20 carries, you know, at times in recent games, and he's a tough back. You got to get a lot of bodies to Pacheco.
Right, and he did not play in the previous matchup
That is
between the Bills
correct. Yep.
and Chiefs. So I don't know what to make of that because they have leaned on him heavily because of the disconnect that they've experienced in their passing game.
Correct.
So they've relied on him a lot more than we've seen Andy Reid offenses lean on backs in the recent past. How would you characterize the run plays in which they use him most frequently? Is it mostly between the tackle stuff, or do they run some other run concepts with him as bread and
He's
butter
mostly
type
an
plays?
inside runner, Brownie. I would say that to me, and again, I don't know how they see it versus this particular defense. We know that the Bills are predominantly what we call an over front, which means they line up their defensive front to the strength of the offense to the tight end side. But they like to run gap scheme with Pacheco where they pull a guard because he's a downhill north-south runner. He's not necessarily a guy that sort of picks his way and figures it out. That doesn't mean they never run zone, but gap scheme is a little different. When you get that pulling guard, you can sort of follow him into the hole, and he hits that hole, and he's an angry runner. When he gets to the second and third level, he runs really, really hard, and he's the kind of back that if it's blocked for 5, he can get 9 or 10. So gap scheme to me is more the kind of run that he runs well and that they rely on with him.
Well, and you're right. Pacheco is a something that's going to be a kind of a wild card in this game because he didn't play in the first one, and he's a difference maker for them. But they're still going to throw the football more probably than they run it. Give us an idea of where this sits. I mean, Kelce had a couple of really prominent drops early in the game last week, and Rice has been really their only dependable wide receiver, the rookie, although I don't know. I just it feels to me like Rice should be getting more targets, and he's not.
Yeah, and you're right about that, Steve. That he's become their number one receiver, and he's got good traits. I mean, I did him coming out of college, and again, I often don't get caught up in number one, number two, unless a guy is truly special, But Rice he's got good size. He moves well. He's a little quicker than I think people think. He's starting to show a really good feel versus zone coverage as to how to uncover. The play we're just looking at was a great example of that. So he's become a really solid receiver. Now, last week, the game was a little different because Vic Fangio decided to go really heavy with zero pressure. And I think they were probably in the 12 to 15 play range of zero pressures, which is not going to happen, of course, with the Bills. And Mahomes played, I thought, mentally and physically an unbelievably good game, given that they probably got things they did not expect as they prepared for that game. But Rice has kind of become his number one guy. Obviously, Kelce is always that guy to some extent, but they're their two receivers that I think you have to be most concerned about.
And then for the Chiefs defense, James Cook kind of had his way with them the last time. He was not only their leading rusher, he was Buffalo's leading receiver. It's almost as if Spagnuolo underestimated him to a certain extent and never adjusted. How do you think Spagnuolo adjusts and tries to account for him and maybe make him more of a priority?
Yeah, I don't know if that was the case, Brownie. I mean, the touchdown he caught was a really brilliantly designed play, and they blitzed and they caught them. They went what we call 4 strong with Sherfield's motion across the formation, and the safety reacted to Sherfield, and they ended up catching them, and they ran a great route combination, and Cook ran what we call H-seam. The other play in which he caught a vertical route was a wheel, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And I think Gay busted the coverage. So I don't know if it was a question of underestimating Cook. I think it was a busted coverage, but they'll be absolutely aware of him. I mean, look, he's gotten down the field. Unfortunately, he's had a couple of drops, but he can get down the field as a receiver, and they will have to definitely deal with that. The question is, how much pressure will they try to put on the Bills offense? Will it be a big pressure game? We know that Spags likes to do that. Will he do that in this game? I think the Bills offense it's become a little more efficient, a lot of quicker throws, a lot of more sustaining type throws. If you feel that that's going to be more a foundation, those are the kinds of throws you don't blitz because you're not going to get there. And then you're just wasting a player.
Right. So, and give us an idea now, because we've had you on every week, and we've talked about the Bills' offense and how it's evolved. Joe Brady now calling the plays, and it's become, to the casual fan, it's spreading it out more. Khalil Shakir's catching balls, Kincaid's catching balls, Diggs is still getting his share of targets, Knox is getting them now, Cook is involved. How does this offense now stack up, or what's its personality now compared to where it was maybe at the beginning of the year, or what we've seen in the past, and how does that match up with what are the Chiefs going to look at when they see this offense?
I'll answer that backwards. One thing that Spags is a big believer in is press. He does not like to give receivers free access off the ball. He's just not a believer in that. So you might have to see some more motion in this game to try to get free access off the ball. But then speaking about the Bills' pass game, I think one of the things they've really done, and it's to help Josh, because I think Josh, when he plays efficiently, boy, is it tough to defend. There's been a lot more quicker game throws. The ball's getting out. They're taking on first down. If it's a 7-yard game, they're more than happy with that. They might take a shot every once in a while, but they're not really pushing the ball down the field the way they used to. So, every once in a while they will. I mean, obviously, when they get a coverage, they feel that, hey, we're going to get this coverage. The touchdown to Kincaid this past week was a perfect example of that. I guarantee that was a game planned play call that they felt pretty confident they were going to get that coverage in that situation, because that was after a turnover, if I'm not mistaken. So as we're looking at the play, because it was a cover 2 play, and it was a seam ball, and that's how you attack middle open coverage. But I think everything has been quicker. They want Josh to be rhythmic. They don't want him sitting in the pocket or fleeing out of the pocket for no reason. So the ball is getting out of his hand. I think that's one reason why Kincaid's such a big factor, why Shakir has become more of a factor. And I think that's a good way to go. It gets him comfortable. It gets him into the game. All quarterbacks want early, and I've talked to quarterbacks about this, are completions. They want to feel like, hey, I'm out here, I'm completing balls. We're moving the ball.
Right.
We know, and we've talked to you about Buffalo's dime package defensively, and we kind of have a pretty good grasp on that. The Chiefs use dime at the 4th highest rate in the league. I mean, even more than the Bills do, and they have guys that can line up at a number of different spots, whether it's Justin Reed or their sub package guy Shamari Connor, who will come in. So you combine this dime package with 2 elite cover guys in L'Jarius Sneed and McDuffie. Where and how do they use that most often? Against what type of teams? And I'm assuming mostly on 3rd down.
Yeah, not mostly, not always. I mean, or not only, I should say not only. Yes, they do it on 3rd down. Now, keep one thing in mind. When they go dime, and even when they go nickel, McDuffie comes inside, and it's normally Watson who goes outside, and you can attack Watson. If you remember last year when they played in Kansas City in the game that the Chiefs won, I believe last year's game was the game they won with Knox catch late in the game, if memory serves me correctly, and then the interception by Johnson right at the end of the game. Wasn't that last year?
Yeah, that was week 6. Yep.
Yeah, that was last year. But they threw 2 vertical touchdowns in that game, one to Diggs, one to Davis, and I'm almost sure both came against Watson. Watson is the corner you can go after. And I think they will go after him. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, when they go to their sub package, McDuffie moves inside into the slot. So it used to be Sneed. Sneed now stays outside. Yeah. And Sneed is a really good corner. He's very physical. He's very competitive. He's a tough guy to go against.
So what do you think these 2 teams take the field? You've got Steve Spagnuolo, Sean McDermott. This defense for the Chiefs has become, and I didn't think it was going to be possible while Pat Mahomes was taking snaps, but Steve Spagnuolo's got the Chiefs defense really is the anchor of the club right now.
Without question.
They are the engine that makes it go. And we've seen it with other places where in Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers was a superstar quarterback, 4-time MVP, and the organization got crushed for not giving him more and more weapons and more weapons. Well, what happened was the club just said, hey, we got this MVP. He's going to make everybody else, all these mediocre guys, better. Let's get a defense. Is that where the Chiefs are?
Well, as I'm just looking at this tape, it was Williams who also plays corner, who they went after on those 2 touchdowns last year. He's kind of the backup to Watson, but this team this year has been mostly built on the play of their defense. They've not had a great offensive year relative to what they've done in the past. It's a really good combination, guys, of quality players at all 3 levels and scheme. Spags is really, really good. You know, their blitz packages are really difficult to figure out. He's really good with late coverage rotation. They have players who can win one-on-one as pass rushers. You're looking at one of them right now in Chris Jones, but he's not the only one. So, you know, this is a difficult defense to play against, and it's a difficult defense to play against on 3rd down. So, you know, this is not. Look, they won the game, obviously, at Arrowhead, but it was not a high-scoring game. Wasn't it 21-17, I believe?
20-17, yeah.
27, yeah. So it was not a high-scoring game. You know, so, you know, this is not, again, you never can predict turnovers or special teams plays, so I don't want to go there. But I think in just the normal course of this game, I would doubt this is going to be a 38-35 game.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking low 20s here.
Yeah.
With respect to the red zone, Greg, it's been a problem for the Chiefs offense. I mean, they're 5 for their last 14 trips in the red zone, 2 of 6 last week against a completely injury-riddled Dolphins defense. What's going on there from what you've been able to see on tape?
You know, normally they have some really cool plays, Brownie, and we just haven't seen those, and I don't know why. Those are play calls. But you know, in an odd way, Kelce has really not been a factor over a good stretch of the last part of this season. And normally in the red zone, he has been a killer, both in how they scheme him and winning one-on-one matchups. And that has not been the case. And I don't have a brilliant answer for that, but I just remember over these past number of years, and I'm sure you do as well, it seemed like Kelce was catching red zone touchdowns every single week. And he's just not been a factor at all in the red zone.
Yeah, and I think that's been the surprising thing as well. This Chiefs team was so creative and doing the shovel passes and the lateral movement in the backfield, so creative down in the red zone, and particularly in goal-to-go situations.
Sure.
And I don't know whether it's a lack of opportunities this year where they haven't gotten down there as much, but you just have not seen that from them. And maybe it's Eric Bieniemy. Eric Bieniemy's been gone. Now perhaps he had a contribution that's lacking. But I have a hard time getting my mind around why the Chiefs we find ourselves looking at the Chiefs offense like this.
I know, and I agree with you. I mean, that to me is always a hard thing when a team struggles in an area they've been so good at. You know, I always find when I watch tape that I don't come across one reason where I can say, hey, this is the sexy reason why it happens. But, you know, I do know that Kelce's not been a factor at all. Those creative plays you've spoken about, Steve, which they used to do seemingly every week, we haven't seen many of those. So, you know, we don't know the reasons for this. I can tell you one thing. I'm not in Mahomes' head, but I don't think he's real comfortable throwing to other receivers, really, besides Rice and probably Kelce. But, you know, I don't think they're getting much at all from their other receivers, not even in terms of volume, in targets I'm talking about.
Right.
Yeah. Greg, thanks as always for the breakdown. We appreciate it. We'll catch up with you next week. Enjoy the games this weekend.
Greg. All right, guys, appreciate it. Thanks.